Hey folks, welcome back to the shop once again. So it's been kind of a busy week. I was away for most of the week. I got back Saturday, which leaves me a day to film a project and a day to edit. And let's be honest, that's not going to happen. But I did have those of you who take the time to comment, which I appreciate. Someone asked me about my dust collection. So I thought I'd talk about that a little bit today and hopefully keep it short because they saw this big barrel, cardboard, and they wondered what it was and all this and that. And so I just kind of thought I'd go into a little bit about my dust collection from my shop. It's going to be different for different people. Okay. Um, and let me put this out on the table right off the bat. Is dust collection going to keep your shop absolutely dustless? No, no, it's not. It's wood. There's going to be dust. Um, will it greatly improve it? Yes. Like many of you, I started out with a shop vac, and I don't even know where it's at. It's over there, buried under. It's just buried. Just know that it's buried. Uh, and that worked okay. It did a pretty good job. I could hook it up to my table saw and to my sander, which were the two things that I used it for the most. Incredibly loud, incredibly annoying. The thing I did not like about the shop vac was is you are limited as to hose length for one thing. And so anytime I wanted to hook it up, I'd have to bring it out from whatever crevice it was hiding in, hook it up, find a place to plug it in. And then when I was done, I had to move it because I don't have a lot of working space here. So then I had to shove it back into whatever crevice it was in. And this was an ongoing process. It was a nightmare. And then I happened upon a really nice guy who I don't know what the proper term is. He is a professional woodworker. He builds furniture, commissioned pieces, dedicated shop, all of the things that little guys like me want to do. But never are going to. Anyway, long story short, we were talking about woodworking, and he asked me what I was using for dust collection, and I told him the old Sears shop vac, and I told him that I'd like to get a proper dust collector, but I didn't know what to do, where to go, what to get, anything like that. And he said, "Well, hang on a minute." And he walked out. He came back a couple minutes later, and he handed me this. Now, let me get you in here to take a look at this. This is the Rockler. I guess you would call it single stage. It says phase one on it. I guess that's what it is. Anyway, it's the Rockler 3/4 horsepower, 7.5 amp wall mounted dust collector. It works really nicely. What I found was, even though, and listen, folks, I am so blessed that he gave this to me. I looked it up, and these things they're not cheap. You know me, I live in Harbor Freight world, and so I know what these things cost, and I cannot thank him enough for giving this to me. But just having this unit isn't really enough. Let me get back down here. Ooh, I'm going into the forbidden steps. Uh, because then just having this isn't enough. You have to have hoses, you have to have connectors, you have to have things that fit onto your tools, all of that kind of stuff. But it certainly saved me a lot right off the bat. The reason I was excited about this is because I could mount this to the wall. And I put it here because I didn't really have any place else to put it. I needed some place where it was going to be out of the way. I needed some place where I would have access to electricity. And so this is where it got put. Now I'll change you around here again so you can kind of get a view of the backside of it. And then we'll talk about what I've done to it and things of that nature. So this is kind of the opposite side of it from what you saw in the other view there. It has a bag on it, which gets the leftover. We'll talk about that in a minute. Hose coming from the collector, which I'm going to talk to about in a minute. You can get very expensive dust collection specific parts for this, or you can do what I did and just go to the hardware store and buy some plumbing pieces, some drainage pieces, and they sell these rubber adapters that just clamp on. And folks, let me tell you how much money you're going to save if you choose to do that. It's so much better. So now you've kind of seen the whole thing. Let me get out of the nasty basement step situation here, and then we'll talk about how I have this set up. Now, because when I got into woodworking, I did what most people do, and I just started watching a lot of YouTubers and looking at their setup and all of the things that, and I had this dream that I wanted a fancy dust collection system. It's not really necessary. It wasn't for me anyway. My shop is, well, it's really small. It's a one-car garage that a car doesn't fit in. And so it wouldn't have made sense for me to go and buy an 8-foot piece of pipe just to get it over to the garage door. I don't have any tools anyway. So what I did was, my first basic setup was this with the bag and a hose. Everything that I bought for this came from Amazon. I'm sorry, I don't remember prices off the top of my head, but it's Amazon, so it's got to be cheap, right? I bought what I believe to be a 20-foot hose, and then I cut it for the hose coming from the separator to this. I did not start with the separator. We're going to get to that in a minute. I promise you I'm going to get to that in a minute. This is a corrugated hose. Do I recommend it? It's not the best option, but it does okay. Anyone, there's gurus on YouTube. They'll tell you that corrugated hoses aren't good because it creates a place for, it cuts down on your dust collection because it creates a vortex. I don't know what. Anyway, science is involved, and they say it's not this. Smoother is better. That's what they say. Smoother is more expensive also. So I have the dust collector, I have the bag, I have the hose. I need a way to attach these things. Let's start with the tools first, okay? I didn't really plan this out. Excuse me for 1 minute here. This is still, God, get out of there. Okay, still attached to my table saw. So this is a 4-inch to a 2.5, I believe it is, adapter. Again, off of Amazon. Just about everything I'm going to show you came from Amazon. Measure diameters. Measure your inside diameter, measure your outside diameter. They are different. I know this because I bought 2 different ones. Some of them fit, some of them didn't. This one fits on this tool. This one fits on almost all of my tools. I don't remember which one it is, but there's a tool it doesn't fit on. Might be my router table. Doesn't fit on my router table, which again, you go to the hardware store and you get your rubber hose clamp pieces, and it's fine. It's great. So much money saved there. So I got 4 of these, I think, which was really unnecessary. You get one, you put it on the end of your hose, and then you put that hose where you need it. Okay. Everything that I do happens within about a 5-foot radius area, really, if I'm being honest. And so this hose, even cutting approximately 4 feet off, it goes everywhere I need it to go. Is it the most convenient thing in the world? No, because when I'm not using it, it's on the floor somewhere, which means I'm taking my life into my hands, stepping over it, stepping around it, doing whatever. Most often, I just loop it over the miter saw and I go from there. So that's the basics of it. Now you can get other pieces, and I have other pieces floating around here that I'm not using because I don't need them. I bought a lot of extra stuff. We're going to talk about this guy right here. Let me bring you over so you can see what this is. So this guy right here is what kind of spurred the initial comment on one of my videos. This is a cardboard cylinder, a cardboard barrel, tub. I don't know what you want to call it. I went with this. I had a common metal garbage can that I was going to use as my dust separator. The problem I ran into it was they come with a corrugated style, I guess, lid, and getting your adapters to fit on that was very difficult. And so I cut out an empty F lid, and then I didn't have a way to hold it down to the can. I had it ratchet strap. It was a big nightmare. I looked for one of these specifically because it has a lock on lid, and she's airtight for the most part. When I turn this on, this lid sucks in, which tells me that I'm sealed all the way around, which is exactly what you want to have happen. Um, but how did I go from this to having hoses everywhere and looking like the robot off of Lost in Space? Well, that is back to Amazon again. The reason I have this is because I don't like emptying a bag. It's a pain. Um, you can get it out of the shop fairly dust free, but as soon as you start trying to empty it, dust is everywhere. And I, even though I take mine out and I have a corner of the yard where I basically dump it all, it's still, you're going to come back and you're going to be covered in dust. So this is a little bit easier to work with that way. So let's talk about how I set this up. Okay. Again, I went to Amazon. This has a locking lid on it. And oh, by the way, these things, you can find them online. There are places that sell these new, and for a cardboard cylinder, they're expensive new. I was shocked at how expensive they were. I found this on Facebook Marketplace. The guy had 4 of them, and I wanted to buy 4 of them. I didn't realize how big they were going to be, and I went to pick them up on a Toyota Camry. I bought 2. That's all that I could get to fit, and that was rough. So again, this is real simple. Blink, locking lid. We're going to let that fall for now. So if we take the lid off, okay, what you have to do is you can't have your inlet facing your outlet, and otherwise you're defeating your purpose. So I've experimented a little bit. I know some people have them exact opposites. I experimented and found that that's kind of, close enough. Okay. These are just basically 90s, 90-degree angles. You can buy both of these in a kit. Comes with the bolts, the templates, the upper piece, the lower piece. I'll take this one off because it's got a thumb screw on it. And that's what your top side is going to look like. And you've got a good, probably 3 inches there, okay? And all you do is just mate the top to the bottom, run the bolts through it, tighten it up, boom, she's good to go. Okay, so you have that. This one's facing this way, this one is facing that way. And that's just allows the dust to fall before the air picks up and goes to this. I don't ever usually disconnect these hoses, but if you're going to do this, do yourself a favor and get the clamps with the thumb screw on them. Lifesaver. That's why I took this one off and not this one. So that's this guy basically. That is the extent of my dust collection. I use my dust collector on my table saw, the router table, the planer, the joiner, both of which are, the planer and the joiner are benchtop models. And so they come to within that 5-foot radius working area that I talked about. And then the hose fits that. The hose basically goes to the end of my workbench. And everything that I'm using is benchtop, so everything's going to go on my workbench. If going that way, there is a bandsaw that still doesn't have a blade, and a spindle sander. And all I've done with that is basically I have an old hose off of a shop vac because I don't want to try and string this hose up over my workbench, which is a nightmare because it's full of junk. And so I permanently affixed a hose to the sander. And when I want to, I just basically, and it's ready to go. So that's the bones of this. I'm going to change you around and put you someplace else, and we'll talk about uh, my plans for the future of this dust collector. We'll put it that way. So as I said earlier, I put this here because I didn't have any place else to put it for the most part. With that being here, that meant that this barrel had to go here. Not a whole lot of options. That's fine. It's not completely in the way, but it's not completely out of the way. The only time that I run into a problem is if I am cutting a board on the miter saw. I have about 4 feet, maybe 3.5 before I hit this particular hose. I can flip the board around the other way, but I'm right-handed. So that means that I want to be running the saw with my right hand. It's a mental thing for me. Okay. You might be the you might be able to use both hands, you know, like a switch hitter in baseball. I don't, what's it called? Ambidextrous. You might be ambidextrous. I'm not. I'm lucky I can stand on both feet. So if it runs into a situation where I need to cut a longer board, again, thumb screw clamp, I take that hose off. Things that I would love to do to this in the future, I'd love to eliminate that bag. That'll come in the form of adding an air filter that will probably have to be adapted to fit on that. But we're woodworkers, right? That's what we do. We'll cut a hole, we'll glue something on it, and we'll call it good. There's a million videos on how to do it, pretty basically. So I would like to do that. That's still going to incorporate a bag to catch the excess, but it's not going to be nearly as much, and it improves the suction on the dust collector completely. Now to do that, I'm probably going to have to raise this up or move it to another location. I think the end result, though, would be far worth it, having a filter, because I'm looking around the shop at the things that are in here, and there's a layer of dust on them, which means there's a layer of dust floating through the air, even though I have a dust collector. Okay, the filter will not eliminate one. Now, they make woodworking air filters like I don't know what the micron is, a super small number of microns. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go down to probably Napa, and I am going to buy an air filter for a Kenworth. It has a higher micron, but it's still going to be better than a filter bag. I am almost convinced of it. No, I am convinced of it. It'll still be better than a filter bag. If I ever do get around to doing that, I'll show you guys how I do it. But in the meantime, this does exactly what I want it to do, the way that I want it to do it. And by golly, that's good enough for me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get some ideas. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll point you to someone or some video that can. And in the meantime, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.